Right, let's go in it, right? Welcome to Tied Down TV, the punk rock opinion show with me, Geoff.
I'm Danny.
And today, a very special guest, Mr. Ron Baird from Stalag 13. Thank you so much for coming on, Ron.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
It's
Appreciate it.
amazing. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Ron.
And so, obviously, you come back to Stalag 13 recently and recorded a new EP. And you're going to go on tour as well. So tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, cool. I mean, look, basically, I've been out of the band. I mean, like we broke up 85. I've been back a couple of times to do a few shows here and there. But really kind of I hadn't been playing with the band for the last about 8-9 years. And it was this guy, John Creer, from like kind of second generation Nardcore. He's a drummer. He sang for Missing 23rd and he basically jumped in on vocals, and I was really happy for them to do that. And they kind of went going with Fill in the Silence and that. And they actually toured a lot because they toured Europe, they've been to the UK and Japan, etc. So how I came back to it is basically John, I guess he just had some other projects going. He plays drums in this band called Head Cut, and he's got a young daughter as well that he wanted to spend time with. And so he was kind of like, I think I'm ready to step down from Stalag. And basically Trust Records over in LA. So Joe Nelson, and they're kind of bankrolled by Matt Pincus, the former bass player for Judge. And they reached out to purchase the controlling right in Control. So they own 51% of In Control, and they were reissuing that. And so basically this was around 2022, and I had to take, because I had all the master tapes and all the recordings from the original In Control recordings here with me in Australia. So for the listening public, I migrated to Australia. God, man, Stalag broke up 85. I think I was backpacking around Europe, lived in the UK actually for nearly a year.
Nice.
In a little village called Leighton Buzzard up near Hemel Hempstead.
Oh, okay,
yeah. And anyway, so I was there for about a year, and then it ended up in Australia. So I've been in Australia since 88. And anyway, so long story short, I had all the master tapes, and I had to deliver those to Joe Nelson from Trust Records. And when I went over to deliver them, this was December 22 to January 23. Blake, the guitarist from Stalag, said, "Hey, well, if you're going to be in town, let's do a couple of shows to announce the Trust reissue." And that's effectively how I kind of rejoined the band. I mean,
nice.
It was initially just meant to be a couple of one-off shows. And then Blake's going, "Hey, man, I'm thinking about planning this European tour. Are you on board?" And I was like, well, we kind of never got past Denver back in the day. So,
okay, yeah.
And look, it was one of my dreams to tour the world with the band. And I was like, well, hell yeah. And so from that, we did these 3 shows in LA in January 23. And they were pretty cool. One of them was in my hometown in Port Hueneme, which is a little beach town. Kind of, it's surrounded by Oxnard. So, I mean, that was always the funny thing, is I'm not even from Oxnard. I'm from Port Wayne. But we did this big show with Dr. No headline, and Fang played, this band Infirmities, this band Crucial Thought, and this really awesome band called Torina. They're one to watch, a Nardcore band to watch. These guys are on fire, man. They're heavy as fuck and really good dudes. Anyway, so we played that show, and that was awesome. And then, like I said, Blake kind of got me hooked on this European deal that we did last year. And I've been kind of flying back and forth between Australia and California. And we did Nardfest last year. And then we went and did the European tour, which was really cool. Like, I mean, it was really funny. Like, they weren't huge shows, but they were like, 350 to 500 capacity. And we played one festival that was pretty crazy. And, like at every show, there were people just going, like, crying, like literally crying, hugging me, going, "Dude, I've waited 40 years to hear you," And, that was kind of really mind blowing. Like I said, they weren't huge shows, a couple of hundred, 300. but those who were there were like diehards and knew all, it would just blew me away
Yeah.
to be playing in Bologna in Italy and, 200 people singing your lyrics, that was a trip. Anyways, yeah, so then basically I came home and I thought that was it, kind of, like, oh, well, and then Blake's all like, oh man, we should do something more. And he was trying to get me on this October tour. And I was like, nah. And then long story short, my wife and I were going on holiday to San Francisco. And Blake goes, oh man, if you're gonna be here, let's do these shows in October. So we did a West Coast tour in October last year, and that was and basically all sorry, I talk a lot. I'll tell you,
That's
but
all good.
Don't worry, quit.
all of this happening, like Blake's the wheeler and dealer, man. He just was like, oh man, we should do a new recording. And it was like, and so kind of all wrapped up in this was we're writing songs, man. They're sending me riffs and I'm jumping on Zoom and talking to them. And then my wife was really helpful because she downloaded GarageBand. And so we were getting this
Nice.
kind of raw riffs or, kind of proto songs from recorded on an iPhone, and then my wife was putting them into GarageBand. Then I was laying down vocals and then sending them back, and that's how we wrote "Holding On." We wrote there's four brand new songs on it,
Yeah.
and then there's three kind of classics. And yeah, so all this was all kind of happening like, kind of September, October, November. And so when I went back in October for this tour, this West Coast tour, which was kind of funny, like it was a bit hit and miss. Some shows were like we played this outdoor show in San Francisco that was at this skate spot, and there was like 500 kids going nuts, man. It was like just crazy, just this insane mosh pit. It was, and then we'd play shows to 20 people, but it was, so it was kind of funny. And yeah, and anyways, and then we did this 10 show West Coast tour. And then straight after literally the next day after that tour finished, I was straight in the studio laying down vocals. So my voice was pretty, it's pretty rough and ready. So so that's how we did the EP.
Nice.
And then we've been kind of pumping that. So that's Holding On Volume 1. Everyone asks us, is there gonna be a Volume 2? Yeah, most likely I think we're gonna take next year off from touring or playing too much and write, I think, a full length, like kind of
Nice.
10 new songs. And yeah, so that's kind of how it just kind of snowballed. And basically when I rejoined, our booking agent in the US was like, okay, he had never seen Stalag play with me. And we played at the Gutter Fest last year, and he was like, fuck, dude. He was like blown away. He goes, never play again without Ron. Just forget. He goes, I love John, but forget any other singer, Because look, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen footage of us playing back in the 80s, but it was pretty intense. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I took I have no shame to say Ian MacKaye and Henry Rollins were like my idols. And, if you look back to the 80s recordings of Stalag, you can definitely see, me kind of riffing off their moves and, so, but I mean, that was the thing. Blake and I put like, 200% into every show. I mean, I was actually watching a little bit of, the show he did at the Sun Valley Sportsman's Hall when we supported SSD, which was like a crowning achievement of my life at that time. And we're just flying all over the stage, man. It looks like two neutrinos, man. Bing, 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 bing. So, and we still do that. Like, I mean, I'm 59 years old, but I work out every day. Like my wife and I do Pilates, Bikram yoga, I ride my bike. So we put on an 80s style show. And
nice.
Yeah. And I mean, that was one of the funny things that when I met Sammy Sigler, because Sammy Sigler, drummer from, Youth Today, Judge, Rival Schools, every other band on the East Coast. He works for Trust Records now. And when I met him, he was all like fanboying on me and I was all fanboying on him. Like, because he's going, dude, you don't understand, man. He goes, when me and Matt Pincus were 12 years old, we used to sit in his room in the Upper West Side and just listen to In Control over and over again. And I'm going, well, that's really cool. And then he was just going, after he saw us play, he goes, man, he goes, you're like no old man band, like, you still bring it, And yeah, anyways, that's the long answer to your short question. So
So
yeah.
you just said there you're 59 years old now. Stalag started in what, 98?
Sorry, you're breaking up.
Sorry. So you just said there that you're 50. Stalag 13 started in what? Is it 981? 82?
81, yeah. 81.
Still get that same buzz playing live now after all these years you got when you were a young kid.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
look, I've always said like I've always said to anybody, like, I said to my wife, I said, look, playing live, I can't even describe it. It's like, for me, it's the best thing in the world. Like, I can't even describe it. Like, I mean, I've done martial arts. I've descended down mountains on a road bike at 80 k's an hour, and whatever rush you want to talk about. Taking the stage is like, you know, I have this little kind of deal that it's just something I've done since I was a kid. I wrap the mic cord around my hand 3 times, kind of stretch the cord, and just kind of like go. And you're just in another world. It's just it's I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's catharsis. It's getting any kind of pain and emotion
Yeah,
and shit
absolutely.
out.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
in trying to impart a message. I mean, my lyrics are all positivity stuff, and all, and kind of, most of my lyrics are kind of autobiographical or semi-autobiographical. So they're about dealing with shit in life and trying to get through
Yeah.
day by day, which is, something people can relate to. And just staying positive. Cause, I mean, as you know, man, life throws all kinds of shit at you. And, it's like either you can lie down and, wallow in it, or you can stand up and say, hey, no, I'm gonna go forward. you know
Amazing. So,
so yeah, for me it's just fucking awesome playing live. Yeah.
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
And I
I
still
mean,
feel it as a 59 year
yeah,
old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
good. That's cool. It means you're up there. You want to be up there, don't you? But so can you take us a little bit back to then your youth? Like, how did you get into punk in the first place? First time you heard it, first bands you got into, and then into
Yeah.
hardcore after that, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Look, yeah, kind of as a kid, like, I mean, like any kid, you're looking for an identity, you're looking for something to do. And I mean, I kind of like, I'm a little bit ashamed of it, but I was really into the military when I was a kid. Like, it's kind of
Okay.
growing where I grew up in Oxnard. It's Oxnard. There's 2 Navy bases there. There's like a Naval Construction Battalion Center, and that kind of separates Silver Strand, where Aggression and that are from like Hueneme and the rest of Oxnard. So there's this big
Okay.
naval base, and then there's a naval air station. So I was really, and I was just fed on all that Cold War bullshit of like, fighting commies and whatnot. And so I'd really wanted to join the military as a kid, and I was in
All
these
right.
military cadets as a young man. And then it was, you know, yeah, that was kind of what I was into. But I was always really into music. Like, I mean, pre-punk, I was like Ted Nugent, Cheap Trick, um, The Who, all of, like, because I was the youngest of 5 kids, and all my older
All right.
sisters. So I grew up on a healthy diet of, all that Led Zeppelin, Beatles, Elton John, whatever. Anyways, long story short, man, when, kind of, I was about 14, 15, I think 14. I went to the supermarket with my mom, and I was flipping through magazines like, Rolling Stone and Cream. And I opened Cream magazine, and there's an article on the Sex Pistols. And I go, oh, and it just grabbed my attention. It was like, it was all salacious, like,
Yeah.
punks, and I was reading, this interview with them, well, this article about them, and I was going, fuck, that's really cool, and that kind of grabbed my attention and got, I guess, punk on my radar. And then kind of around right about that time, I went to see this music festival called the California World Music Festival. This is 1979. It was summer '79. And Ted Nugent was headlining, and that's who I went to see. And I mean, like, yeah, I like the guy's music now, but not his
Right.
politics. But anyway, so I go to see Ted Nugent, but the Boomtown Rats were playing.
Okay.
And I'm kind of like on, and I'm checking these guys out. And the funny thing is the crowd just, man, were throwing shit at them, booing them. But I mean, they weren't like the punkest of punk, but they were different, and
Yeah.
that kind of really grabbed my attention. So that was where I was kind of really like on, oh yeah, I like this kind of difference, this dressing different, this being different. And that I kind of immediately just got drawn into into punk rock. And then I just basically from there, I just started reading everything I could get my hands on of, newspapers, music press. Started listening to Rodney on the Rock to KROQ out of LA. I ran an antenna up to the chimney on my parents' roof so I could, get it. And that kind of opened a whole new world. And then now I'm hearing TSOL and and Wasted Youth and Dead Kennedys. But I mean, ironically or interestingly, the first music I bought was all English stuff. It was The Damned and 999 and the Clash and
Yeah.
and the Pistols, of course. I went straight out and bought Nevermind the Bollocks, and even though at that stage it was a couple of years old. So that's how I kind of got into punk. And then I
Yeah.
was just like, okay, I'm a punk. And then I started, kind of, like, just copying what I would see in magazines and in the records. And, so it was the safety pins, digging around in my dad's garage, finding some chains to put on my boots and, a lock and chain around the neck and the bandanas and whatever. And yeah. And then from there it was, I think it was November, December 79. The LA band X were playing in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm super punk. I said, Mom, can you give me a lift? So my mom drives me to the concert, probably like most suburban kids, I get driven, my mom drives me up to this concert and and she goes and reads a book in a cafe or something until it's time to pick me up. And then when she picked me up, we stopped at a 7-Eleven on the way home to, I was grabbing something to drink or eat or something. And I go in and there's all these punks hanging around out front. And there's these like kind of cholo looking dudes, but punks hanging out the front. And I'm going, man, they're always kind of like shit scared of like walking past them. And then as I'm coming out of the 7-Eleven, one of them goes, hey, and I like just froze and like, I'm going, oh shit, and I turn around and they go, do you live in Wainimi? And I said, yeah. And they go, we've seen you walking up and down Ventura Road. This is like the main kind of drag through my hometown. And I go, oh, yeah. And anyways, long story short, this is the Hernandez brothers. This is Jaime and Gilbert from Love and
Nice.
Rockets and Ismail, who ended up being the bass player for Dr. No. And they were like, oh, yeah, man, we've seen you, man. We were wondering, you're like the only punk in Wainimi. And so I think we exchanged numbers or something. And then they just started taking me to parties and, and shows. And that's how I kind of really got into it in a big way. And then, started meeting people and yeah. And then from there to hardcore, it was, well, just kind of going to shows and it was kind of funny. It was like initially like it was, for me, like, I guess the entree into hardcore was seeing Black Flag, it was like, and like the first time I saw Flag was with, I think Dez was singing
Okay.
and, and just Greg Ginn's guitar playing, just fucking blew me away. And, just like, cause really for me, I mean, there's all the debates about where hardcore came from, but for me, it was Black Flag were like the first, like what we call hardcore now, because it was, I mean, he played kind of metal, kind of, just, all that fucked up, yeah. And that was where I went, okay, like, punk, hardcore. And, and that's why I mean, now I kind of say it, when I reflect back, like I always say, we're a hardcore band. Like if people ask me, I go, hey, we're like a first generation hardcore band, and we have I think a bit of a, like because Blake's always booking us on punk shows, which is cool. Like punk, hardcore, doesn't really matter as such, but I kind of really kind of gravitated to, hardcore, I guess, more. And
Cool. So what Danny was asking, there's obviously in Liverpool, there's a big connection between skateboarding and hardcore. And it
yeah,
seems that it's exactly the same in Oxnard and
yeah.
in most other parts of America. What do you think organically kind of links the two? You know,
Just like, I mean, that's a good question. Like, because I mean, we're, always classed as a skate rock, skate punk, whatever band, and that's cool. I dig it because we're all skaters. And
mm,
I mean, I'm for myself personally, like I learned to skate when I was really young. And it was just, like actually, because Hueneme, Oxnard, they're beach towns and everyone primarily surfed. And I tried surfing, but man, I got hit in the head with the board and I thought, oh, fuck this. And I just skated. And I think the synergy between the two is just the adrenaline rush, man. Just the
mm,
the intensity of it. Like I mean, the two are just like natural fit to
yeah,
me. Like,
yeah, does
whether
seem
you're
that way.
skating vert or skating, kind of, skating steps or skating rails, it's intense. It hurts, I mean, hardcore hurts, man. I come off stage and I'm bruised to the shit house and because, it's visceral, so like,
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean the two just kind of for me naturally go together, man. If you're on a skateboard, I mean, kind of any intense music, really. I mean, it could be metal, it could be kind of, some extreme hip hop, but that I think that connection, particularly with punk and hardcore, is it's just go, and that's kind
yeah,
of and I mean it's probably encapsulated best by we've got two young members now, so the band that's together now, it's me and Blake, which are, I guess really the I guess we're the anchors of the band in any case. And then we've got a drummer who's our kind of vintage. He's 52, I think. And he's a badass drummer. Like, I mean,
mm,
he's 52, but he kills the skins. But we got these two young guys who are like 23 now, AK Tapia and Danny Altamira. And they're like Oxnard born and bred, like Nardcore's in their blood. And
mm,
these guys, they're like, so it's just funny, like, like to have started or been part of something and then now seeing this like what's like a third generation going, fuck man, like I'm playing in Stalag 13, this is fucking unreal. And they talk about because they're but sick skateboarders, like they're off and like they always bring their skates when we go on tour. And they just said it, man. They go, man, Stalag 13 and skating just go hand in hand. Like it's the speed of the songs, the
mm.
intensity of the songs, and and so that they kind of said it best, like they're awesome little guys, those two, man.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about obviously you talked about getting into hardcore. So you decided to start a band, basically, I guess, didn't you?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
Stalag 13.
yeah. So that was like, I mean, being in a band, it's like, or being punk, or it's like you guys, man. You're doing something, and
Mm,
and you can do it. You got the technology, you got a phone, you can make a TV show. And and back in the day, it was the same thing. Even though we didn't have we still had kind of old school technology, but hey, we had Xerox machines and instruments and whatever. So it was just about being involved, and that's I guess another side of punk that or hardcore that I loved
mm,
was like, you know, you don't have to just be a bystander. You can experience it, and so kind of it was like going to shows, you're going, okay, I mean, you're seeing your mates bands play, you're seeing big bands play, but it's like you go, well, I can do it. And I kind
yeah.
of dabbled with, kind of playing, like I'd sung for Dr. No for about 3 months, a very
Yeah,
early
cool.
version. And but really, I don't know, I'd always kind of wanted to do my own thing. And it was really, I guess, the real catalyst for starting Stalag 13 was going to see going to see Black Flag at Rollins's first show. So I
Wow.
went and saw Black Flag. There was a whole bunch of us. Like I think we drove down in Tony Cortez from Mill Repeats. He had an old El Camino, and we were all piled in the back. And we drove to Pico Rivera and in like kind of carpooled with all these dudes from Circle One and drove
Mm.
down to Huntington Beach. Because if I mean, which I'm sure you guys know, man, it was pretty gang-like and pretty brutal and pretty
I was
violent.
going to ask that as my
You know?
next question. Yeah,
Yeah.
I literally was.
And so you rolled in numbers, and I mean the shit was real, like I
Mm.
mean, like early, I mean, I'm not saying nobody ever died, but there was a lot of blood and a lot of violence. And so we were kind of like Oxnard was really tight with the guys from Pico Rivera and from Circle One, and you know they kind of morphed into the Family, which was, I don't
Yeah.
know, man, a cult, a gang, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. But we were affiliated with those guys. So in going to Huntington Beach, that's like going to rival territory, and the Huntington Beach dudes were all crazy, all those beach dudes, you know. And anyway, so we roll up to the show, and the pit was like a war zone, man. I remember, like, man, I just got punched full in the face, and then I just punched the dude back, and then we just laughed and kept going, like, you know. And but I was just transfixed on Henry, man. When he took the stage, man, he was like a just like a fucking caged animal, man. And you know, it was, you know, his subsequent, in the Rollins band, he had that album, or that song, or the album Hot Animal Machine. That's what he was, man. And I was
Yeah.
just like going, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to be that guy. I want to be like, I want to be like that. And I think it was literally like in the next coming weeks, man. I one of my really good friends at the time was this guy Carl Winrich, who he's sadly passed away. He got, yeah, I mean, talking about gangs and kind of drug dealing, he got kind of down a real kind of bad way, and got murdered basically. And he was a great guy, though, great guitarist. And so I recruited him on guitar. So it was, that was the first version of Stalag, was me on vocals, Carl on guitar. We got this guy Chuck Collison, who is an amazing guitar player, like a metal guitarist, really. But he was
Mm.
actually playing bass in Stalag, the original Stalag. And then we got this guy, Kevin Lundberg from Ventura, and that was the first version of Stalag. Now, look, there was a lot of other rotating members, like John Fana from Ill Repute played bass for a little bit. Like, I think he played our first show with us. I think Israel from False Confessions did something in the band for a minute. He
Mm.
might have sang for about 5 seconds or so, because initially, Stalag, I was the drummer. And
Okay.
yeah, because I had bought Carl Valdez from Ill Repute's old drum kit, and I was, you know, kind of playing 1-2 circus beats and kind of D beat stuff. And yeah, so I was the drummer, and then, but we could never find a singer, or a singer I was happy with. And then I was actually drumming and singing for a little bit. And then I thought, oh, fuck this, I'll sing, you know.
Mm.
And then we recruited a drummer who, again, we had a revolving door of drummers like most bands. And but that was that lineup that I talked about, Carl, Kevin, Chuck, and myself. That was the band that recorded the very first demo that we did. That there were
Well,
some tracks on the Doctor Strange reissue of In Control. Those were from that demo. And yeah, and then that was, started a band. And then I just was pretty driven, and pretty relentless. Like I just like, I go, this is all I want to do,
yeah.
And so we rehearsed all the time. Like, I wanted to rehearse every day. And yeah, and we just kind of played. We played anywhere initially. We played a lot of parties up in Santa Barbara with very early RKL. And
Nice.
yeah, and they were super cool dudes. Like, yeah,
Fucking great band. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, an awesome band, and just great guys. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they like to party. And yeah,
I
but
guess they would with a name like.
yeah, so that was how the band got going. And then yeah, and then
Nice. Can you hear me any better now? Sorry.
yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon it's because that's too far away. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
right.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
fire away with the question again. So
Oh no, sorry, mate. All it was I was going to ask, because obviously you touched on the gang thing. All I was going to say was, can you think of any particular venues back then that you were kind of like, oh God, we're playing there? You know, it's a little bit like notoriously dangerous venues where you
oh,
kind of
right.
go, yeah, yeah,
Not really. Any venue could be dangerous. It depended on
yeah,
who turned up. Obviously, like I said, going down to the Cuckoo's Nest, you could always, like, going down to Huntington Beach, the Cuckoo's Nest, you could always guarantee there's going to be some shit.
yeah,
Just because you're going into OC. Orange County is a different world, and
yeah.
but yeah, kind of any venue. But yeah, like there was a place called Godzilla's that was, I think it was the Stern brothers from Youth Brigade that I think maybe had something to do with that, or it might have been there was some other dude named Frank. Look, a lot of that side of it, I never kind of really paid attention to who
Yeah.
kind of owned what and did what. But because there's
Yeah.
some people that know, oh yeah, that guy owned that club or that guy booked there. And I just my knowledge is of all the bands and the connections of the bands and people and stuff. But yeah, Godzilla's was kind of iffy. It was in the again in the East Valley, and it depended on who turned up, but it would there, it really could be any whether you're at Devonshire Downs or which was a at kind of Northridge, Northridge, Cal State University, Northridge. They had shows there, and there would be shit anywhere.
Yeah.
You could be at a recording studio, like a rehearsal space that they would use for gigs, and it just depended on who turned up, and but yeah, there was always like they talk about like oh, because I mentioned FFF, then there were the lads, the LA Death Squad, then there were the dudes from El Monte, and then I mean it's like we were just from Oxnard, we weren't a gang or but it was kind of just that kind of gang like mentality more, I think, than like I said, there were kind of gangs floating around, but it was more just it was just like testosterone driven violence, and like I said, most pits tended to be pretty brutal. It was like funnily enough, when we met John Macias and the guys from Circle One, it was one of my first gigs in LA. I think at the time I was only about 15, and we went to the Starwood to see the Dickies and the Weirdos, and and I'm like, just like, man, I'm like, my eyes are big, man. I'm like, I'd been to LA heaps of times because my sister lived in LA, but like being out on your own on a school night, at this club, and there's all, it was just like kind of surreal. And then we're kind of in the crowd and we're hanging around. And then all of a sudden, man, this like giant of a guy, man, like, he's wearing like, I think, some skin tight t-shirt with the sleeves cut off and his signature plaid pants and braces and these, boots up to his, that go up to his knees. And he comes kind of marching through the crowd and people are just partying like it's, the Red Sea. And he's got like these big, thick chain links all around him. And the dude's huge. He's like 6'3" or something. And his head's clean shaven. He's got these big gold hoops. And we just go, let's go and let's go and be that guy's friend. Like it was me, Tony Cortez, Jimmy Callahan, a couple of other people. And we just went up, and I think it was Tony. He goes, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he goes, "Oh, no," and we just became firm friends, and I don't know if it was, what it was, but like, and then like, so Circle One and us were really tight. And it was kind of, that funny, like the whole, gang fighting thing. Like I remember I was at a show, oh man, I don't know, it might have been Fenders or Mendiola's Ballroom somewhere in LA. I think the Misfits were playing. And our bass player, John Morris, got into a fight with, or is actually his girlfriend got into a fight with this other woman, and they're kind of going at it. And then this guy's boyfriend comes over and is mouthing off. And look, our bass player, John Morris, man, he was like the quietest dude, like the most kind of calm guy. And he just turns around and clocks this dude. And then this dude gets into it and a couple of his friends. And so I jump in and, it's just this, and then it kind of clears up. And then, I don't know, about a half an hour later, this dude comes back, like comes running around the corner with all these big dudes, and they go, there he is, and I remember there's this big black dude, and he was from Long Beach, and he just turns to this guy and he goes, those guys? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, that's Ron Baird, man. They're from Oxnard, dude. Sorry. And I remember just, it's kind of dickhead stuff, and I remember just laughing like, fuck off, and but yeah, it was, it's like it's a lot of shit went on that you probably weren't very proud of, but
It's still cool to hear all those kinds of stories from back in the day.
Yeah. But I mean, it was, it was more than fighting, but the really cool thing was rushing the door. Like, you would go and hang out at shows, and like, I hardly ever paid for shows because you just hang out And then, you'd get like 30, 40, 50 punks together and you'd all just rush the door and security couldn't do anything. And not everyone would get in, or not everyone would get in the first time, but then you'd get in and you're kind of like, and it's probably stuff that people talk about, hey, you're fucking up the scene. And yeah, probably we were, but it was, it was just, it was I guess youthful kicks, and yeah. But that was kind of early on, like, I guess, but it could always kind of like, it was always kind of crazy. And then later on, like kind of after Stalag broke up and I think I'd left, it was like started getting really like, like a lot of neo-Nazis and skinheads, and it got pretty bad apparently.
Yeah. Poison the scene. So obviously then you talk a little bit about recording in Control. As you say, it's a bit of a legendary album now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's I'm just gonna go and turn the heater off, man. Sorry, I'm cooking here. I thought I had turned it off. Yeah. No, I think everyone's in bed. But yeah, so yeah, within Control, yeah, that's one thing I was like really like kind of blown away about over the years, like what an influential album. I mean, I guess it's influential to a certain extent, but I mean, I was pretty blown away with its reach and its impact and its significance as so we within Control, that was our only official recorded output as a band. And like I said, the very first version of the band recorded a demo, and then we recorded when Blake joined the band. So basically the first version kind of ended after about a year. Like it was like, because Carl and Chuck, they were on a lot of substances, and I remember I was at a party or something, and I was trying to talk like, oh yeah, I want to rehearse and we've got this show coming up, and they were like kept running away from me and laughing, and then I found out later from somebody that said, oh, they're tripping on acid, and I was like, oh, fuck those guys, man, they're out of the band, because by this time I was, I'd become straight edge, which kind of actually kind of Stalag and me kind of going straight edge were kind of synonymous. Like they happened, round about the same time in 81. So like my first kind of year and a bit of being in punk, like from kind of 79, 80 into early 81, was like just a drug and alcohol fueled haze of, like just, that's probably why I was doing a lot of fighting, a lot of, and it was really, but like I'd mentioned, John Faniff was my, pretty much my road dog, my best friend, kind of all through my days in Nardcore, and he was always straight. And I'm not sure if he ever really claimed straight edge as such, but he was always straight, and it was because his dad was a U.S. Marine and said to him like something like, I'll kill you if you ever take drugs. And so he was just too shit scared to ever do drugs. So he was always sober and straight, didn't drink. And and I was hanging with him a lot, and he was always saying, oh man, maybe you should lay off that shit. And and it was really kind of when I first kind of heard Minor Threat, I was like, like, fuck yeah, it was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of like, you're doing something that, okay, you're rebelling, you're trying to kind of, lyrically and through music, you're trying to change things. And then, kind of in my head, I'm kind of going, well, why am I doing that and just doing the same shit that everyone's always done, just getting drunk and being stupid? And I guess kind of, straight edge, really like, spoke to me and just kind of grabbed me. And then that's where I kind of, went, kind of, just really kind of embraced it in a big way. And it was a real kind of, yeah.
Yeah. You guys are recognized as the first straight edge band on the West Coast, I believe, aren't you?
Yeah, and I was actually doing the math a couple of days ago, because I'm doing an interview with this German magazine, ironically called Trust Magazine. It's a German language punk magazine, but they're the longest, after Maximum Rock and Roll, they're the longest running print punk magazine. anyways, I was, because I've always contended we were the first kind of West Coast straight edge band. And I was kind of sitting there doing the math, and I was going, well, America's Hardcore around about the same time as us. But then I was reading an interview with Danny Slam yesterday or the day before from I think it was initially done, and it was from Tony Retman's book on straight edge. And they didn't play their first show until April 82. So we had kind of already started in
Yeah.
81. So yeah, so I think and as far as like Justice League came a little bit later, and Uniform Choice actually was, I mean, not, yeah, kind of quite a bit later, not, like maybe like 18 months,
Yeah.
2 years later. And who is the on the band Unity? I don't know if you know those guys. Yeah. And they were all like really like Rob and Pat, like two brothers from Unity, like, yeah, it was funny. Like people were from all over Southern California, but you would descend on LA and you would hang and, and particularly at the Cathay de Grande in Hollywood, which was this little kind of like it was it was like I think upstairs was a bar, and then downstairs in the basement they had bands. And that's, yeah, where like most bands around kind of LA around that time, kind of, 81, 82, 83, 84, that's where you played, And there was a good photo of us playing there where we were on the bill supporting Cause for Alarm. And in the crowd, you see Rob, Pat from Unity, you see Pat Dubar from Uniform Choice, you see Ron Hoffman from Justice League. It's like, it's kind of like a who's who of kind of early California straight edge bands. But yeah, I mean, I put us as the first band. But I mean, ironically or truthfully, I was the only straight edge member of Stalag 13. That was
Yeah.
like everyone else kind of did, a modicum of drinking or smoking or whatever. And actually, Dave Casillas, our lead guitarist, he had some, really kind of severe drug problems. And yeah,
Right.
that's why we ultimately kicked him out of the band. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah,
so
I mean, it was, yeah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well, I was just going to say, so like obviously then back to recording of In Control, because In Control, like the production on it is really fucking good for the time period. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of rough production on hardcore and punk, but yours sounds really crisp and clear. I think the production's top notch on it.
Yeah, that's I mean, I think one of the things why it stood the test of time, it was basically like George Newberry who ran Upstart. He was an interesting guy. I think his dad was English or yeah. No, sorry. Yeah, his dad was English and his mom was Argentinian or something. So he was named Jorge Newberry. So or George, but he went by, so it was Jorge, George Newberry. And he ran like, I mean, I think his parents were pretty wealthy. I think they were in the entertainment industry. They lived in Bel Air, and he basically ran Upstart out of his parents' garage. And but it was he kind of went bust after, like we were the last band he did. We were, Upstart 005, and that was it. And so we were initially going to record in a friend's dad's studio, or a friend of something.
Yeah.
I don't know what the connection was. This guy had played in some 70s folk band or something, and he had the studio with purportedly the mixing desk that Jimi Hendrix had recorded on. It was an analog 24 track thing. And anyways, we got in on the studio, and it's real dodge, man. It's really like shitty looking studio. There's like a broken window. It was like off an alleyway, and there's this broken window with just a bit of like plywood leaning up against it. And, we're kind of going, oh, well, all right, it's punk rock, So we set up everything, and, we're checking levels and whatnot. And then George comes down, and he comes in, and he's kind of walking around saying hello to everybody. And then he says, hey, Ron, can I have a word outside? And I said, yeah, sure. And we go outside, and he's like, what do you think of the studio? And I go, well, it is what it is, but hey, we got Jimi Hendrix mixing desk. And he goes, yeah. He goes, come on, man, pack your shit up. Let's go. We're not recording here. he goes, I've got better things in mind. And I go, okay. So we pack up and leave, and I have to do some fast talking because, it's kind of a friend of a friend. So,
Yeah.
so we got out of it with not too, like, well, I think we had to pay the guy a couple $100 or something. And
Yeah.
anyway, so then we're hanging around kind of going, okay, like for a couple of weeks going, when are we going to record? Where are we going to record? And then George finally calls and says, okay, we're recording, January, I think the 2nd it was, at this studio called Skip Sailor. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't know the studio. And anyways, we drive down there, man. And this place is like schmick, man. It's like, it's in West Hollywood, which is a really like nice part of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it's really slick. Like it's got, like leather sofa, prints on the walls. It's, this huge mixing desk, all this like outboard gear, Sennheiser mics, all this good, it's got a vocal booth. I'm like, wow, I get my own little booth. It's got a little drum corner. It's got all these baffles, really like the real deal. And later I've come to learn that it's like a real deal studio. Beyonce's recorded there. They've won Grammy Awards. This guy Skip Sailor is
Wow.
like super famous. So it's like,
Mm.
like who knew? And so
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. So it was like the full real deal studio. And the guy, John Gass, who engineered it, and I think he won a Grammy for some,
Oh, cool.
yeah. And anyway, so it was like a real deal recording studio. And it says on the liner notes that we recorded it in one day, but I'm pretty certain we were there like multiple days, like probably not recording. I think we laid everything down live, but then we had gone back for like overdubs and things like that. But I remember like, just like being super impressed with the place, like, and it was just like, kind of, going in and doing a track and then coming back into the sound booth and listening back to it, because they had really good speakers. You were just going, fuck, this is really, sounds so awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that like, it was part of what made, In Control, like I guess accessible because it stood the test of time, like because it sounds good. And and look, some people, like lately, with kind of the Trust Records thing coming out, because that's how I'd written this kind of like 20-page narrative, because the selling point of the Trust release is it comes with a 22-page narrative history of the band.
Okay.
That really gives it from kind of woe to go and everything in between, and talks about some particular shows and recording. And anyways, I've been doing a lot of research on my own band, like, kind of checking reviews of it. And some reviews say, it's a little bit too slick, or it's a little bit over. And I'm going, okay, yeah, fair enough. And then the interesting thing is, one thing I've read a couple of reviews is like, oh, the vocals are really whiny, or like, okay. And I'm going, all right, cool. That's, but I mean, interestingly enough, which is probably a fair statement, was one thing we went away with the cassette that after we kind of because we laid down everything live, and then George said, oh, look, get some people to listen to it who you trust. And I gave it to Mark Hickey from Aggression, and he was like, he had listened to it, and he was like, yeah. And he just said, look, Ron, he goes, I'll tell you honestly, man, he goes, it's good, but man, I've seen you guys play live and it's just not there. I'm not feeling it at all. Like, he goes, you're bringing it. And he goes, you're just not, and I go, okay. Like, and it was, it was kind of crushing, but I totally respected Mark's, I mean, he was like, like Aggression were like godfathers,
Yeah.
And, and I just said to George, I said, look, man, I've got to redo the vocals. And he was like, oh man, it's going to cost money. And I was like, I don't want to release it, man. We're redoing the vocals. And in the end, I think I ended up redoing the vocals on 5 of the 9. And, and one of the things I say is like, Black Stick Silver Badge, great song. I just think my vocals are whiny and a little bit piss weak on it. Like, I mean, which is ironic because it ended up being, it's one of our
one of the biggest songs, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and really when you kind of listen to Black Sticks like against say Conditioned, um you can hear the difference. Like I sing
Mm.
Conditioned more, like really kind of, I kind of went in and kind of gave it my all. And yeah, I mean, but it is what it is, and it was a moment, and yeah, it's but
Nice.
like I said, it stood the test of time, and I think because of the quality of the recording, and also the guys on playing, like Dave Casillas, great guitarist, man. I mean, he had his issues, still does, sadly, but great guitarist. Harry Meisenheimer was the drummer on the recording. The dude ended up playing for the Cramps, Um, stellar musician. John Morris, solid bass player. I think lyrically, it wasn't just kind of, shit, stupid lyrics. It was really kind of bringing that kind of PMA, positive mental attitude
Mm.
stuff. And, we didn't bludgeon people with the straight edge, but it was there. I
Mm.
mean, it controls
Yeah.
all, it's, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, so it's,
Nice.
and yeah, like I said, we kind of sent that little bird off into the world.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is you don't know what's going to happen. It's like
Mm.
anything. You write a poem, you write a book, you write a song, you make a movie. You don't know how people are going to receive it or how they're going to
Mm.
interpret it or how it's going to
Yeah.
speak to them. And what I found is, it's really people loved it, like which is kind of, and it was kind of incrementally I learned this because like I said, we kind of like literally like kind of 83, man, things were gone super good. 84, we recorded, the albums that we're playing, third, fourth on the bill, we're now playing like direct support or,
Yeah.
we're getting good gigs, like really good gigs. Gary Tovar from Golden Voice is putting us on some prime shows. We're playing with, Suicidal, with Husker Du, with
Wow.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, with Toy Dolls, with, and things are kind of looking up, and then In Control comes out. Like we played this show at Perkins Palace, and there's I think it was the Toy Doll, Suicidal, the Big Boys, and Social Unrest, and us. And the man, when we played, man, people just like, the gang vocals were crazy. The stage was just covered with people. It was, and
Wow.
yeah, and then we were getting ready for this big tour, and to tour In Control. We were going to do 65 shows over 3 months, all through
Wow.
Canada and all over the States. And we were getting ready for that. And that was when sadly we kicked Dave out, or Dave left the band and due to his drug issues. And then we played for a little bit with just Blake on guitar. But we recorded with two guitars, and I always liked
Mm.
that big kind of crunchy, kind of
Yeah.
two guitar assault. And I wanted to bring this guy, Chuck Collison, the original bass player from Stalag, in on guitar. And yeah, there was, a bit of tension with Blake, and he was like, "Yeah, I can do it on my own." And I'm like, "Nah, dude, you jump around the stage like,
Mm.
a maniac,"
Mm.
which I love, but it'd be kind of nice to have that anchor of a lead guitar. Anyways, long story short, he quit. I kicked him out. I don't remember what happened, and he left. And I was like, "Hey, well, we'll do the tour with Chuck." And then about 2, 3 weeks before the tour, um John, the bass player and the drummer, come to me and say, "Oh, dude, we don't want to do the tour because we don't think Chuck's going to be ready." And I'm like, "Dude, man, we're on the cusp here, man. Let's just do it." And I've tried to fight and cajole and encourage, and they were like, "Nah." So we ended up doing I think about 12 shows of the tour. Like we played from Oxnard up to Washington State. And we played with the Melvins. Actually, the Melvins opened for us.
Wow.
And
Nice.
the Melvins opened
They
for us.
open to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was the Minutemen headlining us, then I think then the Melvins and some band called the U-Men, and anyways, and so we're playing with the Minutemen, who are fucking awesome, and the Melvins loved us so much. We were playing in Tacoma, Washington the next night, supporting Tales of Terror. And the Melvins drove like 90 minutes from Seattle all the way to Tacoma to see us. And I'm like, oh,
Wow.
well,
That's
yeah. you know,
That's
and that
cool.
and that's kind of been one of the like recurring, I don't know, regrets of mine over the years. Like I go and see a band in Australia, like, like a band, I went to see Helmet a number of years ago. And then I was talking to them afterwards and going, oh yeah. And I go, oh, I read you guys are all from New York. And they go, and then I was speaking to the bass player and he goes, no, man, I'm from Portland. And I go, oh, Portland's cool. I go, I used to play in a hardcore band. We played in Portland. And he goes, oh yeah, what band were you in? And I go, Stalag. He goes, fuck, dude, you guys were fucking awesome. I was at your show at Poison ID. And I'm kind of like,
Wow.
okay, yeah. So, and then I learned probably about it was probably 2023 actually, when I went back to take the master tapes back to Joe Nelson from Trust. And Joe took myself and my wife and our youngest daughter out to dinner. And we were chatting. He's going, oh yeah, I was having lunch with Zach De La Rocca from Rage the other day, and man, he was just going. He's like a huge Stalag fan. He was just so stoked that we're putting out. And I was going, really, and so that was kind of cool,
That's very cool. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which again is, I guess, some of that like impact, that
Mm.
the records had, like, and just with people like, like a few years back, 2012, we went back and played. This dude called me, some young guy who was like 22 or 23 at the time. He calls me up and like, I don't know how he got my number in Australia, but he calls me up and says, hey dude, what would it take to get Stalag 13 to play? And I go, well, an airfare back to LA for starters would help, And so the dude scrapes together all this cash and he literally goes to my dad's house in Port Hueneme. And he turns up and he's giving my dad's like fives, tens, 20s, coins, and he gives my dad like $2,000 for my airfare. And then my dad wires it to me. And anyways, so we go back and we play this Narmegadon Fest. It was a cool festival. It was at the
Mm.
Observatory Theater in Santa Ana. It only ran for I think 2 or 3 years, but we were like direct support to Negative Approach, who were headlining. And then there was just a gazillion bands on it, Coke Bust, Magruder Grind, yeah, I don't even, like all these bands on it. It was like, and then because like basically Stalag 13's pay was my airfare. So the band weren't really getting anything. So to help us out, he books us a show up at the Gilman in
Oh,
Berkeley.
cool. Yeah.
So we're playing this headline show up at the Gilman Project. And again, I think we played with Coke Bust, with Magruder Grind, and a couple other bands. And that show was sick. And my wife had never really like, I mean, she knew I was in a band, but I mean, it's like the funny thing is like when the band broke up, sorry, I'm kind of getting convoluted and going all over the
That's
That's all
shop
right.
here.
Go on, carry on.
Yeah, please do.
But basically, like when the band broke up in '85, man, I was gutted. Like, I felt robbed. Like, it was like this at that stage, it was my life. Like literally, that was, I mean, I finished high school and I worked a job, but the job was just to feed Stalag 13, to
Yeah.
shirts, stickers, recording, the van, petrol, tours, whatever, flyers, I lived at my parents' house and basically just, every dollar I earned went into the band. And it was my dream. Like if you asked me when I was a kid what I wanted to do, I was like, well, I want to be a rock star, man. I want to tour the world. I want to, I want to play live. It was just something, I don't know, inbuilt. I don't know. And so it was like I just really, and I probably didn't think about it really until much later in my life, but it's something that's kind of dogged me my whole life. Like
Mm.
I just, felt
Like
like,
unfinished business.
yeah, unfinished business completely,
Yeah.
And look, I had other opportunities and like, I mean, after Stalag broke up, there was a period, so it was kind of 85. And then I think, yeah, 85, like that winter of 85, I went to the UK actually and was, just backpacking and traveling and shit into Europe. And then I came back in 86. And then actually Larry White and I, so Larry, it's funny, the guy who's pictured as the drummer and listed as the drummer and In Control. You know, he didn't play on it because that was another story. I had wanted Larry to re-record the drum tracks, but George was like, "No way, it's not going to be way too expensive."
Yeah, it says on the back. I remember reading that. Yeah.
Harry recorded with Harry. And look, because I mean, you know, we had actually had a discussion where somebody said, "Man, fuck it, just put Larry." And I was like, "No, man, that's not right, man. That's like,
Yeah.
you know, we got to give credit where credit's due, you know." And so we did that, but that was a funny thing, and that's why it was kind of cool that Larry got to play on "Fill in the Silence," and actually you know, like, because "Fill in the Silence" with John Career on vocals, like they had recorded, you know, they had recorded a few songs from In Control, I think,
Yeah, Black and Grey.
and Black
Yeah.
Stick Silver Badge as well.
Cool.
But
Nice.
yeah. So, anyways, yeah, it was kind of like really like, you know, for me, kind of unfinished business. You know, it was, you know, so back to the Narmegadon Fest and the Gilman. So this was 2012, and we hadn't played for a long time, you know, and so the buzz was pretty cool. And like I was saying, my wife was she was like, "Oh yeah, I knew he was in a band, but you know, like I never really talked about it." In hindsight, I kind of go, you know, it's because it was really painful
Yeah.
for me, you know. And that's what I was gonna say. I'd had, like, we did this metal version of Stalag in '86,
Yeah, I've heard
and that
about
kind of bombed
that.
out, you know. That,
Yeah.
like, we actually recorded a demo, I think 5 or 6 songs, and Larry White's got it, and he was gonna release it on vinyl, but I don't know what happened to it. But anyways, that kind of bombed. But what I was gonna say was, Reed Mullen, we played with COC at that time,
Wow.
and they were at that stage where I think Simon Bob Sinister had just left the band, and Reed asked me to sing for him, and I was kind of like, "Oh man, that's gonna mean moving to North Carolina." And it was kind of cool
Yeah.
because my dad was from North Carolina originally, and you know, and I was kind of like, "Do I, don't I?" In the end, I ended up not, you know, and you know, it's one of those sliding door moments. Hey, what could have been? So
Yeah.
it's not like you know, but it's not like I didn't have other opportunities. And my wife often asks me, she goes, "Why don't you just, you should have, why did you piss off and go traveling around the world? Why don't you just stay there and start another band?" And Stalag 13 probably would have come back together anyways. And I go, I don't really know. I mean, I think but in hindsight, I think it was because I was so bitter about
Yeah.
how the band broke up, and that, you know, you know, it was such, I mean, I don't know, I'm blowing my own trumpet, but it was such a good band. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, yeah, I was just really bitter and kind of angry about it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah.
So, what were the like main records you were listening to when you recorded In Control? Was there anything specifically kind of
Oh yeah,
influencing the sound?
I mean, that's actually a very timely question because trust, like, John Nelson's emailed me, and I'm putting together a list, like a playlist of songs I was listening to, you know, through '83 when we were writing and working on In Control. And I mean, yeah, like I was listening to the Big Boys a lot, and who else? I mean, always Minor Threat was there in the background, like
Yeah.
they were a go-to. But I remember that year, it was, there was a lot of good albums had come out that year, and
Mm.
I was listening to Lullabies Help the Brain Grow by the Big Boys, Everything Falls Apart by Husker Du. Um, what else? I mean, I could bring up my little list I'm working on, and yeah, the other one was man, SSD. Like I was
Mm.
Yeah.
listening to Get It Away, like particularly, you know, like Glue, and yeah, so that Get It Away. Who else? The Stains, or Stains, LA
Yeah.
band, which were a terminally underrated band. And like these guys were hardcore, man. Like, and
Mm.
they were just like these cholo dudes, and they were crazy, man. Their bass player, like, you couldn't go near him when he was playing, man. He was like like, no joke, he was like a guy possessed, man. Like, in
Yeah.
his bass, he just swung it around, and if he hit you with it, oh well, you got like really clocked hard. And
Yeah.
like, they were just crazy. But yeah, so yeah, who else? The Misfits, man. Like
Yeah,
man, Walk Among Us, that album Walk Among Us
Yeah,
yeah,
is like a classic.
it's
And like,
yeah,
yeah.
very much.
man, every song on that, like from 20 Eyes, I Turned Into a Martian, Mommy Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight, all of those songs, man. Like just the intensity of that, like, yeah,
Mm,
I'm a huge Misfits fan, man.
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
And then of course Bad Brains, a lot of Bad
Mm,
Brains, because I think Rock for Light came out in 83.
yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, that's and yeah, probably a whole shit ton of other stuff. Oh, like I said,
Yeah.
I'll see if I can bring up that my little list I'm working on, and
I said
I
to
mean,
you,
I
I
don't
always
know.
thought it sounded like 7 seconds at times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, 7 seconds is on there.
yeah,
Particularly Skins, Brands, and Guts.
yeah, yeah.
I love that 7 inch. Personal. I don't know if Joe's gonna, I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag here with with this with this list, but where is it? Like the old Didi, can't find it
I hear a
again.
lot of 7 seconds.
Yeah.
Blah blah. Oh, you hear a lot of 7 seconds
When I
in
listen to it in control, I hear
yeah. I mean, kind of interesting. Like a couple of reviews I was reading were like, oh yeah, like reading back old reviews of In Control, and people would be like, oh yeah, definitely must be influenced by Minor Threat. And I'm going, yeah, for sure. And and then 7 seconds. But I mean, ironically, I mean, I guess they were, but I mean, 7 seconds were kind of almost like contemporaries of ours. I mean,
yeah,
Mm,
they
definitely,
had
yeah,
they had recorded, I think they had one 7 inch out, like I think Skins, Brands, and Guts came out in I think 82 from
mm,
memory.
yeah,
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe, I mean, I would look, I was definitely into them.
yeah,
And I mean, but like I said, we were kind of more like contemporaries. Like we played shows
yeah,
together a fair bit. And, which I always kind of find funny. Like I go, I mean, which is great. Like they went on to do great things.
yeah,
And, I'm really, and that's, I guess, what I wanted for Stalag was what
mm.
kind of
yeah,
7 seconds did, and, it didn't happen. So recently when there was that, I don't know if like there was in LA at, the show, it was Judge, 7 seconds, Major Pain, some other, like, all in one bill. I was almost contemplating flying back for it, but I was right in the middle of teaching classes, and I mean that's a bill I would kill to play, and
yeah,
and
Yeah.
and I was kind of like, we could have, had we, kept playing, we could have been, like kind
yeah.
of similar at a similar position. And yeah, but yeah, I mean, I would definitely take 7 seconds as a
The melody
well,
to
there,
me, like,
yeah, as an influence, like,
yeah,
the other one was DYS.
Ah,
yeah,
yeah. So
Yeah,
quite a lot of
okay, all
Boston
right.
stuff and that. Yeah.
Yeah, DYS, I was digging, man, that Brotherhood
yeah,
12 inch. The Necros,
of course, yeah,
Gang Green, of course. The
yeah,
other one that was huge that I absolutely, a band I love from Boston, was Jerry's Kids, man.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
listening to a lot like that. The album with Build Me a Bomb and Cracks in the Wall
Yeah.
had come
Yeah.
out
yeah,
in 83. So that was I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, it was an influence probably. And Scream, that's the other one.
Mm.
oh, amazing, yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant band.
Like that, like like I asked
You
Joe,
speak in
I
his
said,
language, yeah,
like when when Joe said, "Hey man, put together this song list of stuff you were listening to when you're making In Control," I was like, "Well, could I like put all like Scream's entire album from Still Screaming?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"No." But yeah, so yeah, definitely. I mean, bands I got on there is SSD, Big Boys, Minor Threat, Bad Brains, Minutemen, Husker Du, Scream, Government Issue, Suicidal. Subhumans, I love,
Mm.
man, the Subhumans, man. They were like,
Yeah.
I still love the Subhumans. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, they still
excellent band.
kill it, man. You know,
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
we saw them not long ago and they were fucking brilliant still.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, like they still are, like,
Mm.
you know, seeing them like in '83 or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
On
he's still pissed
Crucifix,
off. That's
man.
what it is.
Yeah, man.
Crucifix is
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Crucifix were another fucking awesome band, you know.
yeah,
And I love that, like, because Drew Bernstein from America's Hardcore, he ended up playing guitar in Crucifix, and
oh, cool.
kind of one of the little, like, because America's Hardcore and us were like really tight as well. And
yeah.
I bought Drew's, like, I bought America's Hardcore's tour van off them when they broke up, and he went to join Crucifix, and we actually drove Drew up to San Francisco, and we were on our ill-fated tour. So the like when
The 12 dates.
Yeah.
12 dates, yeah, we drove Drew up to San Francisco and dropped him off to join Crucifix.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, yeah, definitely, man, standouts were, yeah, that's pretty much what I was listening to during,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, 7 Seconds, Misfits, DYS, Necros, Gangrene, Jerry's Kids, yeah. And you know,
Excellent.
particular songs, you know, like Glue from SSD, man, you know, that's like, you know, just, man, gotta stick together, just, you know, gives me goosebumps, man, you know.
Yeah.
Brilliant
You
stuff,
know.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool.
You know,
one of the things, actually, just a short one, maybe you could tell us. We were wondering, so the logo that seems to accompany a lot of Nardcore bands, the diamond with the X through
I
it.
don't know if you can see
yeah.
my really bad attempt at it there.
Yeah. Well, so well, basically, it's just the Nardcore symbol. So it's just Ox. It's just for Oxnard.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So it's yeah. I mean, you know, it's like it's funny. I thought of like going, oh, I should put Oxnard logos on my hands, you know. I like, because we're playing Nardfest. I don't know. You might know Nardfest has been going here for about I don't know. Like, you know, I've been you know, I've never been to one, and now I've played 2, and I'm about to play 3.
Oh, cool.
And you know, they're having a pre-show party, and they've got their like the flyer is, you know, somebody with, you know, the OX. But yeah, basically it's sometimes done like this, like you know, you put so you do the diamond and then the X, and then you put, you know, like NARD, like, you know, like that, like, you know, kind of the
of course,
yeah, and then sometimes you put core in there, like COR, like, you know, for Nardcore. And like, I remember when we were in Europe on the tour last year, I was graphing that everywhere, and, you know,
cool.
And,
Nice.
being like Oxnard, like, you know, like, you know, so we're
never even thought of that.
So so nothing to do with straight edge, really, but it's
just
Oxnard.
Of course.
I mean, it was funny. I was watching, like I said, I was watching a video of Conditioned live the other day, and I'm all X'd up, and it was funny when we toured in Europe, man. There was a lot of like X'd up folks coming to our shows, which is kind of cool, you know. And you know, I remember one show, there's a dude, man, he's like, you know, all X'd up, you know. And then I actually X'd up on at a couple of shows when we did the West Coast tour. And I mean, I haven't been straight edge the whole time. I broke edge after about 6 years. I probably, you know, like a lot of straight edge guys, when I hit kind of 21, you know, 22. I was actually in Europe backpacking, and you know, started drinking then. But like, I'd never been a heavy drinker, social drinker, and, you know, and then, but like the last kind of on the last 10 years, I've kind of been, you know, kind of in and out. But like, probably for about 3 or 4 years, I haven't, because my wife doesn't really drink. She doesn't really like drinking. And you know, it's like you know, you but it's, you know, it's, I mean, drinking's such a funny thing. It's like, it's such a social thing that, like, you're looked at suspect if you don't.
Peer pressure in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and
It's peer
even
pressure.
as an adult, you know, you go to a barbecue or
Definitely.
you go to a work function. Hey, do you want a beer? And it's like, no, I'm
Yeah.
good. 10 minutes
And if you
later, do
say
you want a
no,
beer?
yeah.
Yeah.
If you say no, I'm looking at you like,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they
So
look at
that's
you
what-
like, you know, and then if you absolutely refuse after the third or fourth time, it's like they almost want to force it into your hand. You know?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I
And
experienced that a lot.
it was funny, like you know, it was like where we like our Pilates studios we go to, they had a like a you know, some celebration function at this pub, and you know, my wife and I go, and we're, you know, my wife was talking to, you know, another one of the ladies, and they go, oh hey, do you want a drink? And she goes, no, I don't drink. And she goes, oh, I don't drink that much either. And she goes, knock yourself out. I'm not saying don't drink. I'm just telling you I don't drink. You know, knock yourself
Yeah.
It's a
out.
strange thing. A very strange
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those funny things. I mean, I know, like, I mean, you know, straight edge is one of those things where it's like, you know, like, I mean, I know there's people out there that say, well, you broke edge, you're never can be straight edge again, or whatever the case may be. You know, I mean, I don't know. I'm a bit stoic about it now. Like, it's, you know, I mean, you know, maybe I just say I'm sober, whatever, you know, yeah, I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it's something that's, you know, kind of been a part of me, and you know, like, you know, and I mean, that's one thing I've never kind of really done since, you know, when I was like 14 or 15 was, you know, illicit drugs. Like you know, I mean, that's one thing I, you know, always abstained from was, you know, and cigarettes as well. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
particularly trying to keep your voice singing, man, it's like hardcore.
Of course, of
It's,
course.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, I touched on quite a lot of what we were going to touch on, weren't we?
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Oh,
well,
I should talk about our tour though, like where we're
I
gonna
was just going to
play.
say, so
Yeah.
you've got the UK tour coming up,
Yeah,
and are you
I'm
touring?
really fucking looking forward to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, you know, I actually, you know, I'd said I'd lived in the UK for about a year. And you know, I actually used to go to a fair few shows, but probably mainly, you know, like overseas touring bands. Like I'd
Of course,
seen Red Hot
yeah.
Chili Peppers. I saw Husker Du, I saw X, I saw, who else did I see there? Oh man, I saw very early Faith No More with Chuck
Okay.
Mosley singing
Chuck,
at the
yeah.
100 Club,
Wow.
which was, you
Wow.
know, and but then I did see local bands too. Like I saw the UK
Yeah.
subs at
Cool.
the 100 Club, which was fucking
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah, we
And
saw
then
them again not long ago.
Yeah.
yeah, and I saw GBH at a festival in Carlisle, actually, up on the, you know, near the
Yeah.
Scottish border up there. And yeah, so that was, you know, pretty cool. I don't know where I was going with this, but
We were talking about touring the UK.
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're talking about touring
Yeah.
the UK. Yeah, so the shows I'd seen in the UK. So okay, so we're the tour kicks off August 1st. We're playing at a new club in Stockport,
Yeah, that's the
Manchester
show
called,
we're
yeah.
hoping to come to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, Glitch. It looks like a video arcade, man, like online.
I can't.
And
It's still showing as closed online at the moment. I can't
oh,
get
okay, all
through
right.
because I was trying to
Whoops.
get tickets for the Stockport show, but didn't seem to
Yeah.
be an option for it. But I'm glad to know it's still going ahead then.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's still going
Yeah.
ahead. I hope it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's show number one. So we
Mhm.
fly into Heathrow and then we're driving, you know. Well, I mean, luckily the England's small, so
Yeah.
it's only about, I think it's what, about a 3.5 hour drive or something. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's the first show, and then we're playing Rebellion, and we've got a
Oh,
good
nice.
spot at Rebellion. So we're playing 8:45, which is, you know, not too early, not too late.
No, yeah,
And
good time.
we're playing in this room called the Arena Room, which I think is about 1,000 capacity, which is perfect.
Mhm.
And yeah, so we're 8:45 on the Friday the 2nd, and then we're playing. Now we're playing in Leeds, and it was the Boom Fest, but apparently they're having all kinds of difficulties and troubles.
Yeah, they're
And
having issues. Yeah.
Well, that's something, did
yes,
Yeah.
so they're still doing our show, but it's just
Mm.
that Saturday, I think the 3rd of August. So there's going to be a whole bunch of bands playing all day, but not because I think normally they do like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday or I think even Thursday, kind of like the same time as Rebellion. They do like a festival, but apparently he can't run it. So, but he's doing our show on the Saturday. And then Sunday we're playing in Birmingham at the Hare and Hounds, which is kind of cool because King Buzzo from the Melvins, his kind of solo thing he's got going, played there. So I'm kind of going, that's cool. And and they were like, and that was one that I actually booked. I just reached out to him because we had a free night, and they were kind of keen, and they got on to some local hardcore promoter, and this band called Mold is opening up for us, and they seem and actually, funnily enough, they know Danny and AK, our new young guys on guitar. And I don't know, they know them like through Instagram and stuff. So that's going to be pretty sick. And then we're playing London. Now our London show got canceled, which is we were playing the New Cross Inn with this other California band called Love Equals Death. But I don't know. I don't think the ticket sales were super great, and they were kind of worried about it's a Monday night. But anyways, we're working on trying to get on another local LA band who's playing Rebellion as well. They're doing something down in London. So I won't say the club or the name of until we get it confirmed, but there will be a show in London. If that falls through, we're working with some guy in the East End, some hardcore like promoter to try and do. So we're gonna have something going in London on the Monday the 5th, sorry. And then that's it. So that's those 5 shows. So yeah.
Amazing.
And then we're off to the continent, do 4 shows in Germany, a show in France, and a show in Belgium.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Look forward to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So we're going to come down to the Stockport show, so hopefully we'll see you at that.
Yeah, it's going to be sick. Yeah.
Man.
And we're looking forward to playing the new tunes. I mean, we played a couple of songs, like we played No Impressions and World on Fire. We played No Impressions on the European tour.
World on Fire is amazing.
And World on Fire we played in when we did the West Coast tour. So we're going to be playing them all. And if folks haven't heard it, have a listen. In my humble opinion, it's pretty sick. But hey, I'm blowing my
and in mine too.
But it was funny. I was talking to this guy from Germany, and he's like, dude, like he goes, look, I love Filling the Silence, but Holding On's like the true like successor to In Control.
Definitely.
And a lot of compliments I got on the tour on the European tour was people going, hey man, you sound exactly the same as you did when you were 18, and I go,
amazing.
Thank you. But I mean, I think it's a little more intense now. I think maybe, I don't know. But there, that was a funny thing going back to reviews of the original In Control is, I'd read a lot about, well, maybe they're a band you see live, and I go, yeah, probably, definitely we're a band you see live. Like, but I don't know. It's funny. I was listening to, I was listening to it was actually a Melbourne punk band called Cutters. And then, how on Spotify at the end, it just starts playing random shit, in that genre. And it's, and I was kind of working, marking essays or something, and it's just playing through song after song. And then all of a sudden I hear the In Control comes on. And it was like where I hadn't turned it on to listen to it. And so I was kind of listening to it. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but kind of like an outsider. Like it just came on. Like I hadn't, and I kind of listened to it and I go, fuck, it's actually really good. It just surprised me because I kind of listened to all this other stuff and I was kind of it was just kind of background music. I was working, and then to hear it, I was going, fuck, it actually is good. It's still good.
It's fucking great if you ask me. Listen, I think taking up a lot of your time there, and I really appreciate it. Obviously, as you say, we're gonna work on getting it sort of cut and edited a bit and getting it on the channel as soon as possible.
Yeah. Look, sorry for the technical difficulties and
probably our end, but we're new to this, so it's
sorry I talk a lot and jump all over the fucking place.
It makes it very interesting. But before you go, actually, obviously you've seen the show. Top 5 hardcore albums from the 80s.
Oh, top 5 hardcore albums from the 80s. Oh man, now you're putting me on the spot. Okay, look, top 5. Whoa, whoa, ooh. Look, I'm gonna have to go. Bad Brains, Rock for Light.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go. SSD, Get It Away. I'm gonna have to go. Scream, Still Screaming.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go. Oh God, it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. Oh God. Jerry's Kids,
Yeah.
and Misfits, Walk Among Us. It's
Brilliant.
got to be my
Solid.
top 5.
That's a solid,
Yeah.
solid,
Solid.
top 5.
Yeah.
Look, it's hard though. There's so many others. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't even mention Black Flag.
Yeah.
I got them tattooed on my neck.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Ron. Anyway, it's been an
Nah,
absolute
man,
just a
thanks
joy
heaps,
to listen
man.
to you talk. And
Yeah, I
thank
mean,
you so much.
we've been talking for an hour and a half. I could talk another hour. But
Yeah.
I know you guys probably have stuff to do and you got to edit this down. So, but thanks heaps for having me on. It's a pleasure. And
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Joy. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
Cheers.
and I look forward to meeting you guys in person, man.
We'll come down to
Definitely.
the Stockport show for sure.
100%.
We'll see you
Yeah.
there.
Awesome. Good
Thank
stuff,
you.
Thanks.
man.
See you, Ron. See ya.
Take care.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
That's what I say. That's what I do. These are